Hi, everyone. Thank you for staying with us this afternoon. This gives me great pleasure to actually have panelists that are aligned with what we've been doing with Passport to Fashion. So for those that were here yesterday and that heard me talk about Passport to Fashion, we've kind of been in Columbus with the work that we're doing and the community that we've been building. But it's really exciting to hear that there are people in other cities that share the same ideas and the same values. So I'm going to bring my panelists on one by one, and this is a rockstar panel. First, I'd like to bring up Alicia Lee. Alicia is the owner of Me by Lee, which is a custom and small batch boutique that designs for inclusive sizes. And Alicia is also a Passport to Fashion designer, now 3 years. Yes, so Alicia is part of the Passport to Fashion family. Thank you for being here. Our next panelist is Perla Martinez. Perla Martinez is the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Administrator for the Franklin County Board of Commissioners. Thank you, Perla, for being here. And we've worked with the Franklin County Board of Commissioners for our newly launched event, which launched last year, called Passport to Flavor. So whatever's worked with fashion, we're doing a copy-paste and doing that with food. And they've been our supporters in our first year, which is really, really helpful to get things off the ground. And last but not the least, our next panelist is Ayman Ali, who is the founder of Fashion Talks Foundation, where she's on a mission to empower and elevate diverse fashion and creative entrepreneurs. Welcome. Ayman joins us from Cleveland. And so that's kind of the synergy that I was talking about earlier when I introduced the panel and said, we've been doing our stuff in Columbus, Ayman's been doing it in Cleveland, Alicia's been very instrumental in propagating this mission in Cincinnati. So it's really great to have everyone here. I know we've heard over the last couple of days, we've heard a lot about diversity and inclusive design. I just want to sort of take a few steps back and go to the basics. And I want to talk about what is inclusive design exactly. You know, it's become a buzzword like we've talked about, and you know, it's trending and all of that. But what does it actually mean for where you are in the community or in the fashion industry? What does it mean for you? Go ahead.
I'll go first, maybe. Excited to be talking on this panel with such wonderful women. Thank you for everyone who's here. So for me, truly, it means creating something not just with diversity in mind, but truly with the people that we talk about and that we are, and taking that feedback from them, whether we're designing or doing events or programming, whatever it may be, and understanding that even as diverse women ourselves, we also might have biases. So really understanding what people are like and the different types of diversity, because it's not just color, right? There's so much more with, you know, shape, size, what we do, how we talk. There's so many different things that sometimes we don't even think about. So for me, truly, it's like creating something that's diverse for people that are diverse, but also with them.
First of all, I just want to say thank you for having me here as a representative from the Franklin County Board of Commissioners. We're very excited to be part of this conference, especially with this very important topic. I think, Aditi, to your question, and I think inclusive design means embedding equity since the beginning of the thought process when we're talking about designing, whether that is researching, whether marketing, prototyping. You gotta center the voices that you're trying to reach and the people that you're trying to like include into your designs, or whether it's retail, marketing, bring them along, bring them to the table, have that conversation. Just really focus on having those diverse voices when it comes to whatever it is you're trying to launch or design, because that's where inclusivity really begins, right? Just bringing equity into the entire process.
Thank you, and thank you for having us. I know that's been echoed, but I'm really appreciative to be here. So for me in Cincinnati, what diversity and inclusion looks like is hiring models that represent the people that buy the fashion. So when you look at a traditional runway, they are very thin, they're very tall, and they're very white. And that does not represent the full breadth of the people that are purchasing those clothes. So when I create a design and when I create a runway show, I want you to see yourself on that runway, quite literally. And I do cast a lot of models that have not been models before, a lot of non-gender specific models, full-figured, petite. I really want you to kind of have a buffet of beauty, and I want to challenge what we've been force-fed is beauty and what the beauty standard is. And I kind of want to kick it and punch it and roll it up and say, no, we're actually going to have this beautiful, diverse group of people walking this runway, and you're going to be forced to see just how beautiful inclusivity and diversity is.
I like that, and it makes sense that Alicia's been doing our show for 3 years, because it really is what we're all about as well. We started out to challenge the narrative, to shatter the norms, and do exactly what you're talking about with putting real people on our runway. It's heartening to hear that we're doing our grassroots efforts where we are. What is it like with the brands, right? Because back in 2020, when there was a big push to promote diversity, and there were so many brands that created positions and put important people in those positions as their chief diversity officer or similar titles. Where are they right now? And did those efforts actually lead to any real impact?
I will say yes and no. If you look at the amount of BIPOC creators and designers that now have a platform that there may not have been before, that has increased, but the support is not sustained. It's not sustained support. It does feel like a bit of a flash in the pan and a check mark to say, hey, we did it. But what I would like to see is it deepen and not just go to the mega influencers and the celebrity designers, but go to the people that are creating designs in their homes, or they're doing small batch. They're doing sustainability. So as you put it, diversity isn't just the color of your skin or your nationality or anything like that. It's are you truly incorporating diverse designers and models into the fabric of your company? And if the answer is no, then you've missed the mark. So I think companies could very well do it. I just don't think that they're tuned into what's really needed.
I think for us, as community partners of a lot of people who are doing this work out here in Franklin County, has meant to put the dollars with the people that are actually doing the real work, right? We have supported the Ready to Work program through the Columbus Fashion Alliance, and that is kind of an example of a wholeheartedly effort to support supplier diversity, supporting designers from the beginning, especially in building these pipelines for people of color or diverse individuals who are trying to get into this space. And as we know, for a lot of issues or a lot of lack of effort, they have not been able to get into these spaces. So for us, it really has been just looking at the whole picture and say, we are trying to support people who are doing the real work of sustainability, because we can't just fund brands or programs that are not doing the work themselves to build these pipelines of people of color, of women, of disabled designers, LGBTQ, whatever the case may be, if they're not actually doing the work of doing that.
And I remember that being the criteria, because when we were having our conversations with you, those were the very questions that were asked. Who is doing the work? Who is it going to impact? What exactly is your plan for the future? Because it's very easy, and as somebody that's been doing this for 8 years, it's very easy to give up after a tough year, or after a year where you've seen every challenge that's possible. And I'm sure you all can relate as well, because in your work, Alicia, when you do your fashion shows, or even when you do your runway events, it's easy to give up. And it's good for funding agencies like yourself to actually make sure that these organizations can sustain themselves. So I really like that. And Eamon, before I get to your turn for this particular question, I just thought of something as we were talking. So I've been everything from a size 4 to a size 16. I've struggled with my body image and body weight, and so I've always looked for where to shop. And something that happened after 2020 is that there were retailers that, especially on their online platforms, they would showcase the same garment on a couple different sizes, right? It was small, medium, large, extra large, or there were different tools that you could. All of that slowly went away because either it wasn't popular, people weren't liking it, or whatever the story was, so that slowly went away. So as we were talking about what have the brands done, they've invested in this technology, they invested in resources connected to this area, but then it seemed to fall off. So I just wanted to point that out, and then I'll let you answer that question.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree with what you're saying, because I find that a lot of the brands that do fall off, they don't have that diversity in the planning team, for example. Like, yes, we're saying, oh, we have diversity and our campaigns are diverse, but then when you look at the team who's deciding what's diverse, that's not diverse, right? So what I was going to say is that there's a lack of access to the rooms that need to have more diversity, right? Like, women like us, we might not even know of some of the rooms that we need to be in, that need to be more diverse, because those are the rooms that they're making the decisions, right? And they're making decisions about people that look like us. So then why aren't there people like us in that room with whatever it may be, whether it's who we are, what we represent, or how we dress, right? And it's really interesting because one of the big things that we've been doing a lot with, I think a lot of people who are championing diversity, they don't think that they're doing it. They're just truly doing it, with a lot of the talk that we had on the panel beforehand and what you're saying. And then there's people who, I don't want to say overthink, but and they're like, oh, yes, this is diversity. And then it becomes tokenism. And then it's like, am I here because you truly want me here, or is it because you wanted to check off for your board members? Do you know what I mean? Then that conversation is where you lose it. But there are these rooms, and there are women like us and many others who are starting to open up the room for other women and creatives. And one of the things that we've started in Cleveland, it's called a forum, and it's a panel talk. And we bring these women, especially women of color, together to let them understand that there are these rooms that they can come to, they can learn from these women that they probably would never have met, and they can do more. And it's true diversity. It's not just we have a panel with one of each because we wanted to showcase that, and then next year it's gone. So,
if I can add just really quickly, that something that I think is also missing is no one is asking the customer what they need. And what was born out of this irritation for models that were full-figured that could not find a proper sized outfit. They just could not find it. That was the huge disconnect, and it bore another line for me, Lux and Long, where in tomorrow I actually have a full-figured focus group where I have a bunch of my big, beautiful baddies in a room, and I'm like, tell me what you want. Because I know that if I get a small corset top, it's gonna have the same breast cup as a 3X. Now, we all know that a small boob is not the same size as a 3X boob. And to go a little bit further, standard sizing didn't show up until the Civil War. So small, medium, large didn't exist until the Civil War, when they had to make wardrobes, or uniforms. Ooh, goodness. Uniforms for the soldiers and the support teams. So we never had to worry about going to a store and picking from 3 sizes. It was tailored or made to our bodies. So going back to that, that's why I do a lot of custom and small batch. I'm asking, the standard sizing is not really standard, even in between the brands that we shop at now. So why aren't we asking the customer? If you are a 38 waist and you are a 46 a bust, good luck. You're gonna have a shirt that's too big and pants that don't fit weird, that don't fit well. But no one's asking the actual consumer, what do you need? And that's the kind of circling back all the conversation is, that's, in my opinion, what the brands are really missing the mark on. They don't care about what the customer needs specifically.
And that's a great segue into my next question. I always say this, I know a panel is going well when the questions sort of segue into what was scripted. And so, we've heard the challenges that the brands have, and we're seeing the challenges that we're facing. I want to turn this, and maybe Alicia, you can answer this best based on what you were saying. I want to look at a little bit of the technical side of it, the sourcing, the material, the stitching, the patterns. There seem to be brands that started, for example, Old Navy started a plus size line, and it slowly disappeared. and then there have been other brands that have tried that. What are the true challenges that a retail brand may have around offering, such a gamut of sizes or offering plus size? There probably is something at the manufacturing and supply level.
Yes, that's very true. It costs more to make full-figure clothing if you're sourcing, in my opinion, lazily. If you're thinking about, I hate to, no shade to the fast fashion brands, actually lots of shade to them. Lots and lots of shade to them. But they are copy and paste, like I mentioned before. They have a standard pattern that they're using, and they're just slightly grading it up to fit their full-figure client. And unfortunately, if you're a full-figure girly and you're wanting to purchase, you don't have a lot of choices. So on the manufacturing side, it is more expensive, which is going to raise the cost. But I haven't met a full-figure customer that hasn't been willing to pay for a garment that fit them well. So to me, it's really lazy. But you have to pay for more fabric. You have to think about the structure. If I get a size 2 top, or I say size 2 dress, there's not a same level of support that's required for that dress to fit properly for someone who might be a 4 or 5X. There needs to be some more structure. There needs to be more support, and that costs more. So I think a lot of manufacturers are thinking about that bottom line and still, again, not thinking about what the actual end product will be for that customer.
Yeah, that's very true. And something I'm thinking about while you're saying that is, are we teaching that in our schools? Are we teaching that during fashion design courses to design for different body types, different body sizes? And we can touch on that later. I think that would be a separate panel in and of itself. But coming back to this panel, we've talked about how there isn't necessarily access for folks like us that are either women or immigrants or women of color or minorities that are trying to do this work, right? I've been very fortunate in the place that I've been in, this community in Columbus, and the connections that let me do what I do. Similarly, with all of us, we've been fortunate, and we work hard too. Let's not discount that. But what are some of the barriers that might be blocking women or BIPOC individuals from actually being at that table or being in those rooms?
I'm going to go because the last panel, they definitely talked about this, but mentorship. I feel like mentorship is very hard for women of color, immigrants to find or figure out, or how do they do that? I recently now have mentors that I'm like, wow, like I'm learning so much faster. I'm moving so much faster, but I didn't have that in the beginning of my career, and I wish I did. I would have done things, I wouldn't have struggled so much. I'm sure I still would have struggled, but I wouldn't have been at that level. So I think mentorship is number one for sure. Having that community around you that you can go to, ask questions, like as you're on the county, like for people to come to you and talk to you as a designer, as someone who does events, like just having people to be like, hey, can you help me? Can I ask you about this? Can I run my idea by you? I think that's really missing because a lot of women specifically, we like to do it all. And we don't like to ask for help, and we think we can do it, and then we get stressed, and we think we're failing, but we're really doing amazing. We just need a strong community. So I think mentorship and honestly networking and putting ourselves out there and getting in front of people that you never know how they're going to help you. Some of the craziest opportunities I've had is because someone remembered me and recommended me a year later. So I really think I'm really huge on mentorship, especially with our internship. We really do a lot with the young girls from the schools and try to help them develop their careers. But I would say mentorship and then building that community is really what's kind of missing for a lot of BIPOC, especially creatives.
Access to funding, definitely that's a huge one. Funding doesn't come as easily for marginalized communities. So if you're trying to get into this space and you don't have that capital, it's really hard to do so. So that is why from our end, we do a lot of supplier diversity and economic equity from our office. And we see it all the time, right? How a lot of people don't know that access to funding exists out in the community because sometimes the lack of networking or the lack of connections. But I can think of, Freedom Equity or Rev 1 Ventures, the CO Collective, or the Women's Center for Entrepreneurship. I mean, just a lot of these organizations are out there providing these like microloans or funding for a lot of, and not only providing the capital, but also holding your hand throughout the process, right? You have also ECDI here in Columbus, which I think it also exists in Cleveland and Cincinnati, that have accelerator programs or mentorship opportunities as well. So I think access to funding is a big one, especially in this space that it's so hard to get into. So yeah.
Yeah, yes. Yes, in addition to that, I would say that a lot of times designers, I would say designers like myself or people that are just starting out in the space, they're the first one to do it.
Yeah.
So they don't know that they need mentorship. They don't know that they have access to funding, or they're the ones going at it alone. So when it's time to say, well, crap, research costs money and I don't have any of that, let me go work a double so that I can earn the first money to get my pattern made. So I think a lot of times when you're going at it alone, you don't know what you don't know. And a lot of trial and error, and a lot of times you waste money because you don't have mentorship. So I think just the knowledge, a lot of times there's not a space to go to say, hey, I've got a crazy idea. Who can I talk to about it? Because how many of us are designers in the room that have had a crazy idea, and then we talk about it too much, and then we see it on Amazon, and we're like, ooh, maybe I should be a little more cautious. Or the fear of, if I share this idea, who's gonna take it? Because we've all had really cool ideas that have somehow come to fruition, but we didn't do it. And so there's a lot of fear and trust, I think, baked into the BIPOC community of, I ain't telling y'all nothing, because I don't wanna ask for help, because if I do, you might either crap on my idea, steal my idea, or I might end up holding the bag. So I think there's a lot of fear that we have to kind of unpack and build trust that I can, if I don't qualify for funding, how will somebody tell me how to? Can I have how do I even know that I need a mentor? So just the knowledge that we need to get into those rooms is often we don't have access to initially in BIPOC communities.
I do want to say also, that just reminded me, like, I think mindset for us, especially as immigrants, because so many of us think there's only one seat at the table, and that's the token Latina, brown woman, black woman, whatever it is, but we can make our own table. And a lot of us don't realize, like you said, like, if I share this idea, someone's gonna steal it, right? And then at the same time, it's like that, I like to say that, like, it's a scarcity mindset, but we need to be in an abundance mindset, because we could, like, work together and do better than if I was like, oh, I don't wanna share because what if she steals it? Which a lot of us don't realize, or people don't realize who are doing it alone until much later.
Yeah.
And something else I was going to add, and it's aligned with the cultural upbringing, is that you may not think you have it in you to do what you want to do, because we've been trained to follow conventional paths that will make us money, or the degrees will look good next to our names on our resumes and whatnot. And so if you want to sort of break away from that and try to do something different, you have to fight your family. You have to fight your friends. I love to tell this story, so if you've heard it before, I apologize. But I started in science. I'm a bench scientist with microbiology experience and worked in a lab for 10 plus years. And when I started doing this creative stuff, or working for Fashion Week or doing Passport to Fashion, people were like, what do you mean you're doing this stuff? Why are you doing this stuff? Aren't you a scientist? And I was like, yeah, I am, but I'm also this, and I want to try it. And so sometimes it's that you have to first be confident and say, I want to do this. I'm going to do it. Maybe I'll fail. Maybe, it'll take off. But then you've got to, fight the people around you. And I wish that culturally, that was more of a supportive environment. And I know it's different for different cultures, but where Eamon and I come from, and I can speak for her on this.
You gotta be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer.
Exactly, exactly. And otherwise you're not doing the right thing, or you're, playing with your career or something.
I come from healthcare as well. I worked in a hospital. I understand.
Right. So it's that piece. And then just regardless of the cultural background, I think it's also just taking that first step, because we all have it in us to do that thing that we're really passionate about. And we're all examples here of, if you follow your passion, you can do great things. So it's going to be, we have those barriers that are external, but then the barriers that are internal as well. And as you all were talking, if I put my event management company owner hat, I'm thinking, oh, this means we can do a lot more events, we can do a lot more networking, we can do a lot more panels, we can do a lot more shows. So stay tuned for all of that. Something we are trying to do at Passport, and that we have done successfully now for the last few years, is we are creating accessibility to doing a fashion show, so sort of breaking down the barriers that might prevent a designer from participating, meaning the designer fee, for example, right? Because if you're just starting out a business, or you are designing because you have a passion for it, you may not have the funds to buy your materials, make your designs, and then also pay the designer fees. And so we have had programs that will subsidize these fees for student designers, or if somebody comes to us with a hardship, we have always found funding to be able to support that. And hopefully, with the way things are progressing with us, we are trying to make that even more accessible and turn that into something that everybody can participate in. I want to switch gears a little bit and sort of go back to the economics of this whole thing, right? We talk about diversity, and like I said, we could do everything we can at the grassroots level, but for it to really make an impact, we have to fight larger forces. The largest force we're fighting right now is the environment, is the culture right now, where apparently diversity has become not a great word. So every day I open the news and I'm saying, oh, so-and-so corporation has cut their funding for DE&I programs. So-and-so corporation is pulling back this and pulling back that. So when the news first started coming, I will not lie, and my team here knows, it was really disheartening. Like, how are we going to do Passport? How are we going to carry on the work that we're doing in this environment, right? And then it's like, you've got to do what you do, and it's going to take, it's going to progress. But how can we, and people like us that are trying to make a difference in this area, navigate this environment that we're in right now?
I'm happy to jump in. The diverse population is not going anywhere. So if they cut the funding, we got dollars. If they say DEI is a bad word, we'll change it into something else. I think that the allies and the BIPOC community will not be stopped. We saw this with Jim Crow. We saw this. This is not new. So for me, I'm sensitive to it because it's not new. There's been covert and overt racism since the beginning of this country. So it's literally not going to go anywhere. We just get creative. We just get savvy. We band together. We have partnerships across the aisle. We don't silo ourselves. We band together with the Black and brown community. We reach across the aisle. And they can cut whatever they want to. It's going to fail eventually, and we're still going to keep doing the things that we do, because look at history. We always come out on top.
Yes, and second that, and I think we've always existed, right, as our whole selves and as who we are. For us, as a government entity, there were many conversations or questions or fear from community partners, right, as funders, what's going to happen, right? And I mean, internally, we also thought, we had very hard conversations about what was the future of DEI, especially in our environment, going to look like, especially when a lot of people depend on the support of the commissioners, right? And I think for us, it has just been staying truth to our mission and our vision, both as a county and as an agency. We are here for the residents of the county. We are here for the economic development of the county. And that can't happen without the residents of the county itself, regardless of background and regardless of what endeavors they're bringing in. At the end of the day, it is also about economic development, right? So if we are funding for the progression of this county, the people are getting funded at the end of the day, right? And we are staying strong onto what our values are, what our mission or vision has always been, and we are very fortunate that we have a 3-commission board that believes strongly on this work and believes in the residents of this county, and that we just have to keep going.
I couldn't agree more, and I think it's perfect because I absolutely like to say that this has kind of weeded out the people who didn't want to support us
Right.
in the first place and didn't believe in us, because like you said, the community will always be there, right? We will always show up, and we'll always show up for our people stronger. But now it's very interesting, because I also had this kind of like, what's going to happen to the arts, the fashion, the creative culture, and Cleveland is a little different than Columbus, but I have received so much support in just the last 3 months with our runway coming up at the end of June. And I'm like, wow, like these are the rooms I want to be in. These are the organizations that I want to support me, because if they're willing to stand up for me and help me now, that means the most, right? Because when everyone's supporting, that's great. But when people are afraid to support, and then the people who are supporting, that means a lot. And that builds long-lasting relationships. Because eventually when DEI becomes popular again, and everyone tries to come back, we'll know who we want to work with and whose missions we stand with. Because, you know, just like Target getting all the backlash about what they did, right? That's so obvious. How could they have not known they were going to get that backlash? Because they probably didn't have people in that room to make those decisions. And, you know, the people who do support us, we thank them, and keep our eyes open, and, you know, stay aware.
Again, that segues into my next thing. I promise we didn't rehearse this. So I was going to ask, so for people like us that are sticking to their mission, right, unwavering, regardless of the environment, regardless of the threats that we face, are you all in your worlds seeing added loyalty or support? I know you spoke to it a little bit, but I'm curious to see what your experience has been, because it's true that it's going to weed out people, but it's also going to scare people that actually have the intention to support, but they're like, I don't know, you know, I'm iffy because what if X, Y, or Z? I wish we had somebody from that could speak to, like, how is it going for the brands that did not discard their DEI programs, or, you know, like Costco doubled up on what they were doing when Target was kind of getting rid of the DEI stuff. But on the retail and fashion side, is there a movement among customers that they're, you know, being more loyal to certain brands, or within the community being loyal to certain platforms, or increasing their support?
Maybe I'll continue, because I have lots of thoughts on this. I could be here all day. But as someone who's chronically online, I'm sure most of us in the room are, seeing the younger generation, like especially Gen Z on TikTok, especially when the Target stuff happened, with how they started boycotting, how they kind of spread awareness, I think there is this movement of people being more aware and taking more action, especially with the things happening around the world. I think people, again, are doing their research and realizing, okay, if I'm going to spend my money, I'm not going to spend it here. Or let me find someone local. I've seen a lot of people going out of their way to support more local and DEI, and proudly say that. And the ones that are scared or maybe are hesitant, I like to say it's their loss, not ours. Because at the end of the day, either they're going to see it and have FOMO, or they're going to come back and be like, you know, I wish I had not felt that way. But as long as they see others, I think that makes a difference. And in terms of the question, I do think I've seen a lot more larger organizations support. The ones that have the power to and are not afraid are supporting. And it's amazing to be in those rooms, because you're like, wow, like these people are not afraid to speak up. They're not afraid to support people that look many different ways, especially in today's environment. And that is it kind of gives you hope with everything that's happening. That, with the mix of, you know, seeing people actually change their spending habits. There's a lot of larger brands out there that have had to do a lot of drastic changes, Starbucks being one of them. You know, there was a lot. There was boycotts of that, Target, like there's so many things, and I think now the brands are realizing, oh, there is power. We can't just put out an ad and everyone's gonna be happy.
I agree. Brands are realizing that you have to do the work. You have to actually put your money where your mouth is. Something that's happening in Cincinnati that I'm finding really beautiful is small batch design. And rather than going traditionally to like China for manufacturing, we're looking at Accra in Ghana, where they're making things for a fraction of the cost. But we weren't looking at Accra and Ghana before. We were looking at China, Indonesia, India, places like that. So it's almost like we're forced to like lay our cards out on the table and say, all right, who's supporting, who's not, where do we spend our money? And I think I heard the previous panel mention that our dollar is our strongest portion of our voice. If I don't buy anything from Target, we saw what happened. if they do something to offend any number of us, whoever that us might be, as soon as we take our dollar back, we can give it to the people that are supporting. And then we see the economic development in that community. So I'm seeing it in real time as all the plans to go to China to manufacture have now shifted to Africa.
I think from our perspective, the fact that we are sitting here in this room, being graciously part funders of this event, of the work that the Columbus Fashion Council has been doing, or all the fashion efforts that have been being out there, are still going out there in the community, from workforce development initiatives to education, engagement, economic development. For us as the funders and the partners in this endeavor, staying strong to saying we are doing DEI, we're calling it DEI, and you will see the fruits of, whether we're calling it DEI or not, but just staying true to ourselves and to believe in the vision that you all set out to do in your respective cities or in this county. Are looking at it.
And I think it's important to look forward and try to expand and grow. It's a good thing to keep doing what you're doing, but it's also a good thing to not change your plans, right? Because when you change your plans and when the trend resets again, then you'll not have who you were or what your brand was. And I do want to talk about, one or two things that we're each looking forward to in our organizations or in the things we do. Because I want to make sure that when we end this panel, we end it on a positive note. We've talked about some, pretty serious stuff here, and I want to have folks remember all of that, but also take home what they can look forward to, because every day, some days are harder than others, but every day these days there's something new that's hitting us, and I think I can go and do a shameless plug for how we're now expanding other aspects of creativity and culture, and taking passport to fashion, adding on passport to labor, and taking it under a big umbrella organization called Diversity 614. Diversity 614 will be our nonprofit that will house programs like Passport to Fashion and Passport to Flavor. A lot of other programming coming. I know I manifested yesterday when I was speaking. I said Passport to Music 2026, and my board probably is hearing this for the first time. Joe is smiling in the background, and so we're really excited. It has been hard. The first few months of this year, we were like, oh my gosh, what are we doing? Are we even going to do this? But then, from mentors, some of them that are in this room, the advice that we got was keep doing what you're doing and let the rest take care of itself. So we'll start with Eamon, because I know you have an event coming up in June.
Yes, so for those of you that don't know, we do something called the Runway every year. It is a fashion show that we do in Cleveland. It's actually our 5th year anniversary. We showcase local, national, international, and student designers. We have like 50 plus models, hair and makeup, the whole shebang. It's beautiful, and we partner with different historic venues in Cleveland every year as well. So this year, June 22nd, at the Western Reserve Historical Society, we are doing our 5th anniversary runway. So if you are in town or would like to be in town, please come out, come attend our show, come celebrate with us. We have amazing designers from not only Ohio, but internationally as well, that I'm very excited from Canada to Indonesia. So it's gonna be very exciting. And then also, we have done this in Cleveland and in New York before, but our forum series is coming back at the end of this year. So it's a panel talk for creative entrepreneurs to learn, grow their business, and be in the room, and truly be around the DEI that we talk about and we hear about. So if you would like to connect on any of that, let me know. And then those of you that heard me speak yesterday do know that in August, we are hosting Christian Siriano for an event that I am planning. So if you are interested in that, come chat with me, follow us online. You can just look up Fashion Talks or Eamon Ali. You can Google both of us, so you'll find all of the information.
From our standpoint, probably not a lot of big things. Well, there's always something happening in the county. But I would say right from our office, we are hosting an event. We do quarterly, they're called Coffee and Conversations. And it's all about economic equity and access to small minority-owned emergent businesses. And it's a lot of networking and a lot of connections and a lot of, while we do not, for those of you who have small businesses or know people who own small businesses, it is a moment to just come, listen to opportunities that may be accessible to you, whether at the county or with other companies or the city. The state is there, MBAC, the Urban League, a lot of people doing supplier diversity efforts in the community. And then if you have questions about how do you get your certification, access to, loans and all of that stuff that I was talking about earlier, we're doing that. So it's gonna be on June 6th, and I can share with the DT the location because I don't have it at the top of my mind, but it's from 9 to 11 on June 6th. So that's kind of what's coming up from our end. We will be having a Franklin County Board of Commissioners conference at the end of the year, TBD, location and date, but that will be coming as well. So yeah, and also just as a shameless plug, as someone who works in local government, I do encourage everyone to stay connected with what is happening here at the county. The commissioners are based in their dollars and with what they're funding here at the county. Stay connected. They have a public hearing that they do on Tuesdays with my colleagues on the community. So you have a specific colleague. If you know someone that is looking for a job, the county administrator also does coffee careers and more. And then if you attend, there is an opportunity for you to get an automatic job interview. So you may not be interested in county government yourself, but if you know someone, tell someone about it. It is all on our social media. If you can follow us on Instagram at our Franklin County or Franklin County Board of Commissioners on Facebook. So yeah, that's it.
I want to come to all of these events. I need a body double. So I am representing the MAC, which is the Midwest Apparel Creative. It used to be the Black Design Collective, but now we've expanded it through the Midwest. And we're actually bringing Fashion Week to Cincinnati, November 4th through the 9th. So it'll be a very produced shows, panels like this, a lot of opportunity to network. Buyers will be there, obviously. But before that, in preparation, on August 2nd, we're doing a designer workshop. So one thing that we talked about kind of loosely that I wanted to hit on again was getting your back office together. So if you are a model, a designer, a photographer, and you're freelancing, you have to have your back office together. Having a website, having your, whether it's a QuickBooks or an Excel sheet, having those things intact. So if someone asks to hire you, you're not scrambling, and you can present very professionally, which will elevate you, and you'll be able to be hired for jobs. So August 2nd, I'll be leading the designer portion of that workshop, where I'm going to talk about how to do your line sheet, how to start creating your tech pack, how to fund your samples, all of those kinds of things in preparation for Fashion Week. So that's August 2nd. Fashion Week's November 4th through the 9th, and then I feel like I'm forgetting something. But join the MAC Center. That's short plug for that.
What's your Instagram?
Oh, my Instagram? Oh, I got like 4. We'll do that. We'll do it at the end. But yeah, we'll do that at the end. That's okay. I need to remember them. But those are the big things that are coming up for me in Cincinnati.
So it sounds like we're going to have a very busy fall, summer. Passport to Fashion is August 8th. I know we kick it off with you in June. And then there's a lot of exciting stuff that's happening. And this is the end, so feel free to, if you can recall your Instagram handles, or we will have them on the CFC page and the Passport to Fashion page. But I really want to thank you all for being here today. I know that this topic needs a lot of discussion, but there's never enough discussion about the different aspects of diversity and the challenges that we face. So it really means a lot to me that you're all here and that we've had this wonderful conversation. Thank you again. And I would like to open it up if there are any questions. Hang on, let me
Hi,
get
Jay.
you a mic. Yeah. Thank you. I know your handles, I do.
I say, go to mebyley.com. Everything's there.
Hello.
Some of you are familiar with me. I'm Jay Lilly. And the question I mainly have is, we were talking about mentorship, giving access to those who may be designers, models, anyone who may just be getting started, don't know where to start, or even if they have been getting experience on their own, but still haven't found a community. We talked about, creating our own round table instead of fighting over a seat at the table that pre-exists. And I'm just wondering, what does that table look like to you guys? When we all come together, these mentorships that we have in mind and things like that, what kind of events do you imagine putting on, or would you like to see for something like that?
I have lots of opinions on that one, but I do like to say that I think that table involves no gatekeeping. I think that table involves no mean girl energy. I think it involves being open with our resources, what we've been through, our struggles and our success, and knowing that we can help others, and in turn they will help us. But not being transactional, authentically doing it. Because if there's one thing I've learned from the impact that we've been making over the last 5 years is, I'm proud to say that the runway we do is that space. We have people from different communities come to enjoy the show. We have people from different communities come and participate in the show. Not only from, when you're talking about models, we actually had a model one year reach out to us and be like, I'm pregnant. Can I walk the runway? And I was like, yeah, that would be so cool. And one of the designers really wanted to, she was like, perfect, I wanted a pregnant model. So, seeing themselves on the runway and having experiences, because DEI is one of our pillars, obviously, as you can tell, I'm here speaking. And a lot of Black and brown communities don't even have access to experiences like the ballet. And we have a ballet performance at the beginning of our show so that they can see themselves in these spaces at a larger level. So I think it's that table has to be inclusive, but also open.
First of all, everybody needs to hire Jay as a model. Okay. Just hire her. Had the pleasure of working with Jay last year for the first time and knocked my socks completely off. So I know you were new, but you did not feel like that. So I want to give you some public flowers.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I would say start with where you are. Even if before you leave this room, make sure you get people's Instagram handles in there and their emails. You don't know who you're sitting next to. So sometimes we think of networking as being this big grandiose thing. As much as people might not believe it, I do not enjoy it, because I'm like, I make clothes. You want to be my friend or not? I can get a little socially awkward, and I think we all have a little bit of anxiety around meeting new people. So if I meet you and there's a good vibe, I'm gonna chat with you, and hopefully you introduce me to your beautiful friend next to you, and now I've got a friend, and then she's got a friend. So starting small is perfectly fine, and you'll find your tribe, even if it's sliding in someone's DMs that you've seen in the space that you haven't been able to meet. So you know what, I love your work. I love to catch coffee. I would love to just come to your studio and sit and just observe. And that mean girl energy, you'll detect if that's there or not right away. And sometimes it's just a protective barrier. Sometimes it's just a defense mechanism, because creatives are like that. We're kind of crazy.
Yeah, we might look crazy, but I swear we're nice.
We're so nice. We made friends backstage. But start small. Just start with the people that you have access to, and then you'll be surprised at how far that can get you.
The one thing I will add on this topic, and it's really close to me, I can get on a soapbox about it, but follow through, right? When you're trying to build your network, or when you're trying to make connections, it is a full-time job. And you have to be courteous, you have to be respectful of the other person's time, you have to do so many things that are not a one-time thing. These are things that will build and sustain your relationship, and they take time and energy, and they may mean sacrificing something else, because now you have to take an afternoon or an evening to kind of catch up on DMs or emails. I cannot tell you how many times people will reach out and say, oh my gosh, hey, I would love to do this, and I would love to catch up, and I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, I have, Monday, Tuesday available, and it just goes nowhere. And you're like, okay. And that happens a lot. We're all busy. I mean, we're all super busy. Everybody's doing certain things, but that if you're committed to building a network, and if you're committed to finding those mentors, you have to have follow through.
And I will quickly, add, and it just came to my mind. Look for, as someone who, again, works in government, but like the community is very important. Look for programs or look for things and, here or in your vicinity that may be of interest to you. And even if you think that, well, that's kind of not my space or I'm not gonna totally fit in, you never know. And just, I quickly said that because that's how DT and I met.
Yes.
As you can see, we are not technically in the same spaces, but we were both part of, the Impact Academy. No, Columbus Young Professionals, and then we just happened to be in the same space, and that just has continued parallel, right? So when you're talking about connections, you never know who you're gonna meet and how that's going to be able to flourish. So, and lean into your lived experience, honestly. I feel like that's a big one, especially when you're trying to network and everyone might seem, oh, they're so advanced and it's so professional and what am I doing? I think that's called imposter syndrome, right? But like, why not you, right?
I think we have time for one more question.
Hi, I'm Ilka. I didn't realize that my question ended up maybe relevant tonight, which is great that I came in with Nicole today. So I'm in the very early stages of creating a slow fashion brand. I wanted to start with jewelry because I've been researching it for years, and I really want to use very natural, raw source materials, and I get in this kind of endless cycle, like it's becoming a wild goose chase when I keep going, with these business brands, and I'm really researching, the ethical reasons and everything behind it, and at the end of the day, they're not. So I don't know where a good, especially local, how you were saying, state level, county level, even better, where would be, if anybody knows, a good place to start looking for that?
Farmers markets.
Okay.
Farmers markets, small pop-ups. There's a lot of artisan, especially in this area, there's a lot of artisan vendor markets that happen, especially during the summer and spring months and fall months. Go research. Find out where they get their materials from. Some people are, this is their platform to sell their merchandise, and they're making these things in their kitchens. So you might find a local supplier that will give you a way better deal than what you could find online. So that's how I got started with some of my pieces. I would find a woman who would get stuff shipped from Ghana, and I'm like, yes, I'll pay $1 a yard for that. So that would be a suggestion for me.
I'm not a designer, but I work with a lot of designers, and I'm gonna say there are a lot of nonprofits out there. They could be local or even national, but they do a lot of like helping you find fabric, or they might get pieces donated to them that then they want to give to you. So I would look kind of outside the box. You might not just want to look fashion, look textile, but at a nonprofit level. You could probably Google it. That is great. And then obviously, yes, farmer market. And then a lot of schools have pieces for students that they also sell publicly. I don't know about here, but in Cleveland, for example, we have, and again, outside the box, they do, they help refugees learn how to sew, and they have a whole basement full of fabrics and other things that are donated to them that then they sell for a very cheap cost to help grow that. So they're not specifically in fashion, they're in like economic development, but that would work for you too.
Something I'll quickly add is, look at the ethnic communities in your area, because a lot of the businesses, by the nature of family businesses, are, they're sourcing locally from their part of the world or where their families are from, and it's coming to you straight from the manufacturer in that particular region. So you might get a lot of things that you didn't even know were out there, because if they're coming from India or Africa or other parts of the world, that's going to immediately give you the diversity in your product line that you need.
That's very insightful. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for attending. We have another segment after this, which is Fashion Matters. Are you okay for me to go to break? Oh, there's Max. I was trying to hijack duties, but thank you so much, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks.
Let's take a picture.
Yes, let's do a picture, please.
Thank you, Aditi, and thank you to our incredible panelists for an authentic and energizing conversation. I would like to encourage everyone to take a 5-10 minute break. We are going to have coffee and lemonade out there, and then we're going to reset the room and get ready for our next section.